Wednesday. It is the middle of the week and we are moving on with a brand new project. So I got an order the other day from a gentleman out of Prescott, and he wants an address sign, and he wanted I kind of went over some details with him on what he wanted, and what we came up with is kind of a standard size that I use. This is a standard pattern and board that I've had for a long time. I actually cut this on a little video that I posted on Instagram last week. But so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the whole process. This may take a couple videos. I don't think it'll take any more than that, so probably today's video and Friday's video. But I want to go through, this is questions, and in the process of doing this, I'm hopefully going to answer a lot of questions for you guys on how we actually go about cutting our shapes. Now in the past, we have done several videos on this where Dad has done this. But I want to kind of give a refresher and maybe answer some questions that I get on a regular basis that may not be answered on those older videos. So this is the router we're going to use. We're going to use a template guide. This is our spiral upcut router bit with our 3/8 template guide that's made for the DeWalt 611. Excuse me, not 611, 618. This is a DW 618. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of set up for this, and then we'll come right back and we'll get into it. Okay, so before we get into cutting this, I really want to try and answer every question that you guys could have when it comes to using your router to cut shapes the way we do it. You might have a ton of different ways that you cut your shapes, but I want to go over in detail exactly how we do it. First of all, this is the set of template guides that we use, and the one that we use almost exclusively is the 3/8. Now this 3/8 template guide is the same template guide that's in here. We had an extra one. So this is 3/8 and this is 3/8. Now by 3/8, I mean that is the OD. And when you hear these terms like OD and ID, just so you know, OD is the outside dimension. That's from the outside to the outside. That's 3/8. On the inside, it's just slightly over 1/4 of an inch. And our bit being 1/4 of an inch shank, that's what you want. I think it's actually 9/32 on the inside of the of this because of the wall. But anyway, that gives you enough clearance that that bit should not be hitting the inside of your wall. Now the way this mounts is you have this little round nut. This goes in there, goes into this base plate, and see how this is? This has got a step to it. So your base plate must have a step that receives this template guide. And then this goes on the inside like this. And then you tighten it up. So that being said, this is our base plates that we make for this and other big routers. And we have the smaller versions like the 611. But in no instance is this hole made for that, because it doesn't have the step in there so that this will fit flush on the router like it does here. So you can see that fits nice and flush. It's got to have that step in it. We're not set up to make our base plates to receive these template guides. So that's a question that I get quite often is, you know, does your base plates receive template guides? They do not. So be sure and keep your original base plates. And I can feel a sneeze coming on, so hang on. Nope, it went away for now. Anyway, so if you have a router, whatever router you have, whether it's Ryobi, Rigid, Skill, Freud, I don't care what it is. If you've got a router, a bigger router, number one, I would not do this operation with the small palm routers. I would always do this operation with a bigger router. The palm routers, you might be able to get by with it, but definitely take it in multiple cuts, not all 3/4 cuts like this one is. I told you guys there's a lot of details here, so this is, you know, this might be a long video, but I want to try and go over every conceivable question you guys might have. So, where the heck was I? I got off on a tangent. Yeah, so our base plates, just to make sure you know, our base plates that we make for these routers are strictly for carving signs. They're not for cutting shapes. You need to keep your original. Now, whatever router that you have, whether it's a Craftsman, again, Skill, Festool, whatever router you have to make sure that you get a template guide that will work with your router base plate. It may be a totally different design. Now, Porter Cable and DeWalt are pretty much interchangeable. In fact, they're the same company. They're owned by the same company. So, you know, that's why this Porter Cable will work in my DeWalt. And it may work in a lot of other routers too, but don't automatically assume that it will. You need a template guide that you know is the right size hole, which this hole, actually I should measure that. I think it's an inch and a quarter hole. I believe it is. Yeah, it's about 1 1/8 inch hole, actually, that this fits into. The hole on your router may be different. Anyway, so I hope that kind of clears it up. Make sure that the template guide that you get for your router is made for your router. Okay? So, that I'm trying to think in my mind and cover all of these possible scenarios for questions. I think that is about it. Again, the 3/8 on the outside, just make sure that it has clearance for the inside 1/4 inch shank, if you're using 1/4 inch shanks. So that is it for that. Now, the bit that we use, I was just talking to a gentleman on the phone this morning, actually, and he was having trouble. The bit that he was using had a 1 inch flute on it. The longer the flute, remember, they have to grind this in there. Our flute length is 3/4 inch. He had a 1 inch flute length, and the flute is just the cutting edge. Is how long, how wide a board can you cut. This one is only 3/4 inch. I didn't really even show that. This one for the flute is only 3/4 inch. He had a 1 inch flute. The more material that they grind off that bit, the more chance that you have for flex, or what we call deflection, which just simply means the router bit is bending. You know, to the naked eye you can't see it, but the router bit is bending. When we start cutting this, you will hear the torque that is going on when we're cutting that. It's going to be really loud. But so I suggest go no more than 3/4 inch flute length, whatever bit you're going to use. If you're using our bit, it's going to be 3/4 inch flute length. But if you're using some other manufacturer's bits, I wouldn't go any more than 3/4 inch, just simply because you want that bit to be as rigid and as stiff as you can, so it doesn't flex and go over and hit the inner wall of your actual template guide. That you're not going to want that. So if you have it, like with this bit, I can cut up to 2 inches thick. That should be no problem. I'll just make it in multiple passes. I'll take it a 1/2 inch at a time and just keep going down. Anyway, that is about it for there. Now we're gonna go to the next scene, and we're gonna actually get this thing cut. Okay, so one of the things that we determined when I was talking to my customer is he wanted a light color board. Otherwise, I probably would have used redwood, but he really wanted the pine look. So what I did was I glued my pattern. I glued a piece of the select pine. I just cut off a chunk, and then I clamped and glued this. So it's been sitting for a day or so. But I didn't put any dowels in here and no biscuit joints. The glue that they make, I use Tight Bond 2. It's a really good glue. That's all I really need. So I'm gonna, first thing I have to do is surface this off and get that joint down nice and smooth. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm going to do both sides just so it's good. that will work. So what we've got now we just have to determine what's going to be our front, what's going to be our back. Looking at, and what I always do is hold the board up, and you can see, hopefully, this board has a little bit of a cup to it. Am I looking at it right, babe? Yeah. That board's got a little bit of a cup to it. So that means I want this to be my surface, because I want that router base to be able to slide nice and smooth when I'm carving this. So this is the front of my sign. Okay? So that being determined now, we'll go ahead and set up and get this thing cut to shape. Okay, so one other thing I want to mention, we're going to get into this cut. This is our standard Live to Ride cutout pattern. You guys have, many of you guys know what this is. It's a kind of an eagle Live to Ride sign, and we've showed that many times. But this is the cutout pattern that we sell. We have them on the website. And if you guys go back and watch the videos that Dad has done in the past, we suggest to use this as a temporary pattern to make your real pattern. What you should make your real pattern, what we suggest, what we use, is a material called HDPE. This is the pattern I'm going to be using to cut this shape. This is 1/2 inch thick, and it's HDPE, which stands for high density polyethylene, I believe, I think. Dad knows. But basically, it's cutting board material. You can get this at a local plastics company, I'm sure. Just tell them you want cutting board material. So I'm going to use this, but being at, and this pattern, by the way, I've had this pattern for at least 20 years. At least 20 years, and I've cut hundreds and hundreds of pieces with this. You would never be able to get away with that with this soft MDF. So here's what, again, I'm trying to hit all of the bases here. When you get one of our cutout patterns, understand we designed this as a temporary pattern. You could probably cut maybe 20 or 30 pieces off of this with no, without that edge getting damaged or pushed in. But anything over that, you're taking a chance of wearing that down. So use this as your master. Make your production pattern, which is what this is, and then set this one aside. Set it up on a shelf. If something ever happens to your production pattern, then you can always make another one. Anyway, that's just a suggestion. Again, I'm trying to hit all the bases here. So if you have questions, you know how to get a hold of me. So let's get into this. Let's get this thing cut. So again, we have marked this as our face. Now all of our cutout patterns are always made to cut from the back. The reason why is because that it's held on with these screws, and we don't want these screw holes in the front of our sign. You could have them in the front, but I'd rather they were in the back. So we're going to set that down, and we're going to...
Where are you setting it on though? What's that white thing?
Oh yeah, what's the white thing? Thank you. This is what I'm going to cut it on, and you can see I already cut one. This is just a piece of that 2-inch insulated foam that we have in the studio. We should have some in here, but we don't yet, but we will. Anyway, it's just insulated foam. You can get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's just 2-inch foam board, insulation board.
Move over that a little bit.
Huh? Move it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to try and center this on my board, because I really don't want it breaking free. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap that in place. Those screws work pretty well, but you do have to tap it quite a bit to get them all to grip. But as you're cutting this thing, guys, remember you want to have good downward pressure. As long as, and that thing should stay in place even if there is a little gap. Just have good downward pressure on there. Okay? Now, ear protection is very vital in this particular instance. And you guys will see that in a second when I fire this thing up. This thing is super, super loud. So here's another detail for you. When you're doing this, go counterclockwise. If I came in here and tried to go clockwise, or excuse me, you want to go counterclockwise. If I tried to go clockwise with it, what would happen is it would drift away and wouldn't hold next to the pattern. It'll be really, really tough to keep that, that guide bushing next to the pattern. All right, so now I've got this set already at the depth. I want it just past the surface. I'm talking really loud because I've got my ear protectors on. Sorry, I didn't mean to be screaming. So I want to set this just deeper and cut into that styrofoam.
Pull it back.
Pull it back this way.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will show up. I've got it set just deep enough so it cuts into that styrofoam, so it'll cut all the way through the board. All right, let me put my ears back on. And I may fast forward through this when I do the editing. I'm not sure, guys. But in case I don't, turn your volume down as soon as I fire up this router, because this thing is really loud. Here we go. Okay, there is our piece. That's how we do it. Now we just, what?
Still yelling.
Am I still yelling? Oh, sorry.
Your ears ringing?
That was really loud. So then our pattern comes off and we have our shape. Now, does this take a little practice to get good at? Yes, it does. To keep that thing from tipping, especially when you're on a pattern that is basically hollow. You guys are probably going to ask, why is this pattern hollow? Because when I first designed this pattern, I was actually also using the inside part to cut a groove. This was a special template that I made for a certain style of sign, and I actually, it was all redwood, and this would be a groove that I cut along there. That's the reason the pattern. But being as the router was just riding on this, you know, this deal here, you had to make sure that it didn't tip on you. So it adds a little difficulty to it. But take your time and learn. You know, if you think about it, that is super dangerous with that bit like that sticking out from the bottom of a router. That's really dangerous. So really, safety first, guys. Well, actually, I read something the other day, coffee first. Yeah. But safety is on there. But anyway, so I need my hat again. Am I too blinding? What did I do with it?
Hanging up.
I hung it up. Oh, there it is. Anyway, so, no, I'm just kidding. Safety is first. So, be very careful with this. It's super dangerous. It does an amazing job. The cool thing that I like about doing shapes this way is everyone is exactly the same. There's never, and once you got your pattern made, then it's just repeatability. It's production, repeatability over and over and over and over. So I really like cutting my shapes this way. So what we're going to do now, we're going to tear this all down and we are going to move on to the layout on this sign. So we'll be back. All right, let's get going on this. Let's get this layout done so we can get on to the carving. So here's what we're going to do. Here's what my customer wants. This is his perfect drawing, but he gave me an idea. So this is what he wants, and he said he wanted the pine and not the redwood. Anyway, so if we can come down here, what I want to do, here's a cool logo actually that Vicky found, and we actually cut it out on with the laser.
Okay.
So this is the eagle that I'm going to use, and before you can ask, not available. It's so fragile that I don't think this thing could even be shipped. It's super, super fragile. But what I really want to do is I want to put it inside of a circle. So I've got this is just a base plate that I had laying around that is a perfect size. So I'm going to center this from left to right, about 1 7/8 inches coming in from both sides. And what I'm going to have is this is going to be my circle. My eagle is going to be outset inside of this circle. So everything inside of this circle will be background except for the eagle. So now I'm going to set the eagle in there. Now, I'm not sure whether the camera is going to be able to show this or not, but this thing kind of has a warp to it. And you guys know, once in a while when you get a piece of birch like this, it will kind of do that. So I've come up with an idea that I think if I sprayed that the way it was, all those lines would be fuzzy. And you know, if it's a big thing like this, I could hold part of it down with a pencil, spray it, and then hold the other part, and that works. But with this, that wouldn't work real well. So I'm going to try something new and see if it works. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to I turned it over. I'm going to actually spray that with adhesive and see if I can stick that whole thing down and then be able to peel it off. So let's find out if that's going to work. So we got to let that set for a minute. This is, by the way, the adhesive that I use is that 3M77. It's really good stuff. So I'm going to let that set for a minute or two, and then I'm going to take that, hopefully get it right where I want it, and press it down. Now, while I let that set for a second, the numbers he wants, I'm going to use, these are 5-inch, I think. Yeah, 5-inch Clarendon letters, or numbers, 1054. So these are going to be outset as well. So everything inside of here is going to be outset. So what I want to do is I want to draw a line. I'm going to come up probably about that far and just draw a line, and that's where my numbers will be set. We'll lay that out in a second here. So let's see.
I'm going to put something on top of it there.
On top of what?
To weigh it down?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to need to. So I'm going to set that right where it goes. It's going to be pretty tight. Wow, that thing is. That thing definitely has adhesive on the back side. I want to get it set right where I want it. What I might do is cut to the outside of that circle because I'm really close on those wings. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Let's see, it's stuck down. I think that, yeah, it's almost stuck down. Looks like it's stuck down. So now, theoretically, we should be able to spray that.
Are you going to hold it up and spray it?
Actually, you know what? I think I can spray it right where it is. And I probably have to redraw that circle again, but that's no problem. All right. Now, let's see if we can peel that off there without busting it. There we go. Not bad. Gives me a pretty decent line. Got a little. It must have come up a little bit here. I was really being very careful not to spray too much adhesive on there. But between that and having, like I always do, having the actual artwork printed out on paper, I'll know where all my lines go. So anyway, that is that. Now let's lay out those numbers. 1054. Let's get those in place. Let's see what 4 inches and 4 inches looks like. Again, these will be outset. Yeah, let's come in a little bit. That's a little too much. Actually, I think I'm going to bring those up a little bit more. I don't like that line. I want to come up a little bit more. Give me a little bit more room to get down around the bottom of these numbers. Wow, awkward silence. Man, not very often. I don't have my gums flapping.
Or mine.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. You think I'm crazy? I wasn't going to say that. All right. So, I just want to put that on there to keep that. That thing will work just. Oh, that doesn't work. That kind of blocks the camera, doesn't it? Here, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. I'm going to turn it around. 1054, right? 1054. Yeah, I double and triple check. That doesn't look quite right. But see how that 5 is kind of... I could actually put some adhesive. You know, let's try that. I'm going to throw some adhesive on that too. See what happens. See if I can get that thing to stick down. Trying all kinds of new stuff. Now the trick is get it where I want it before it sticks in one spot. Ooh, that is sticky. It looks straight.
Mm-hmm. It does from here.
Yeah, it looks straight. I generally go, if it's got a straight line on it, like the 1 or the 4 or the 5, the 0, you kind of have to just eyeball it. But I generally make sure that that's perpendicular. I think that's the right word.
Looks like it's setting over too far.
The what?
4.
4 needs to close?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's spray it and see what happens. My can's almost out of ink here. Or not ink, this is actually primer. I don't know if you guys notice what I'm doing there. When I'm spraying vertical like this, with the can vertical, see how it stops spray? Just turn it upright, spray again, and it'll go for another few seconds. I don't have to worry too much about these things flying on me. That should be pretty good. That 5 don't want to move. That thing really stuck. Ooh, got a little smear there. That's all right. It's nice and crisp. That's actually the cleanest line of all of them.
Okay, you want to hold it up here?
Yeah. Now what I will want to do, I can feel a little sticky on there, so I want to make sure and sand that down with my little, little piece of 220 or, or 80 grit or whatever. Make sure that that sticky is not going to transfer onto my router base.
Hold it up. I want to get that eagle there.
And I'm going to redraw that with a pencil. I'll just put it back in place and redraw it.
Okay.
All right. That is the layout, boys and girls. That's it for today. We are going to come back. That's a lot on this video. So we're going to come back, make this a second video. So on Friday, we'll go ahead and get this thing carved. So hope you guys are having a great week, and we will see you guys on Friday. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and click that little bell icon. Remember, Make a Wood Sign on Instagram. I'm there every day, pretty much every day. And hope you guys can join us on Friday and get this thing carved. I'm kind of curious to see how that eagle is going to come out. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you on Friday. Bye.